Hey everybody, welcome. I want to talk to you today about where the saying comes from that I'm sure you've heard me say many times. If you have followed me for a while or if you've done any one-on-one work with me, you will have heard me say, I'll decide what this means. And you will have heard me encourage you to take on the same approach. So that when you're given information or when your ego tries to convince you of something or someone's intention or what's going to happen or just the meaning of something, that you say, I'll decide what this means. There's so much power in that statement. There's the power of putting a pause in between what you've just encountered and your reaction or what meaning you're going to give it. And also there's a deprogramming power around it in the sense that rather than going into that trigger of, I know what this means, this always means this, you say, you say, no, I'll decide what this means. And it allows for things to change. It allows for you to have power and it allows for change. So I want to share with you today where that originally comes from and the experience that I had that really taught me how powerful that is. So in my 30s, after many years of thinking I had continuously been to the wrong optometrist, because I knew that I was having issues with my eyesight. I knew that I needed glasses, but every time I would go, I would have an eye test. They would do prescription glasses and then I would put them on and sometimes they'd be okay and sometimes they weren't. And I kept thinking they're not the right ones. They're just not the right ones. My eyesight was often blurry. Driving, I felt like I needed glasses for everything, and yet they kept saying to me, well, you only need them for reading. And then even the glasses they were giving me just weren't effective all the time. So I'd put them back in the lovely container they came in, put them in the top drawer in the kitchen and leave them there for about 2 years, and then go to the next optometrist and think, all right, I better try again because I can feel a deterioration. By my sort of mid-30s, I was also experiencing, the feeling when you first get up in the morning and your eyesight's quite blurry. When you first open your eyes and they're a bit sort of, this, it's like you might be underwater for a minute and you just need to kind of blink your eyes. You might need to rub your eyes just to clear that, which is a very normal thing. But it wasn't going away. And it was staying sometimes for up to about half an hour. So I thought, okay, that coupled with the fact that I still have never really found the right glasses, I am going to do a shout out to all my friends and ask for recommendations for optometrists. And I did end up with the exact right lady who, when she heard all those symptoms, said to me, it actually sounds like a corneal syndrome and I think you need to head off to a corneal specialist. So on my way to the appointment, I will never forget this because there was just so many lessons in this sort of experience. So on the way to the appointment to the corneal specialist, as I was walking into the building, I remember thinking, oh God, I hope I don't have to wear glasses all the time. I didn't mind. Obviously, I wanted glasses to help me. Obviously, I was happy to wear them when I was reading, but God, I just don't want to have to wear glasses all the time. During the appointment, he confirmed that I do indeed have this syndrome, which is called Fuchs, Fuchs. It was the surname of the man who found it. And it is a condition where the cells in the cornea don't clear the fluid out properly, and hence why I was sort of having this unclear vision and why it often can feel like I'm sort of looking at things underwater. So he confirmed that yes, I do have it, and then with just a winning bedside manner, all I can say is thank God I was a nurse, because I just don't even know what this would have been like for somebody who was actually looking for support from a medical person. So he said, yes, you've got it. I've never seen it in anybody as young as you. It's quite advanced. If you haven't had children, I would say have them now. there is no treatment. It will progressively get worse. You will need a transplant. I would say you'll be lucky if you can make it to 10 years without needing one. I would definitely say, before 10 years is up, you will need a transplant, a corneal transplant in both eyes. Thank you very much. Bye. So I walked out and here was the first thing where I thought, irony. I walked out and I thought, God, only I just needed to wear glasses every day for the rest of my life. So, everything has a perspective. And I was obviously in quite a bit of shock, right? Because you kind of don't expect to be diagnosed with something like that in your 30s. And you also don't expect to be told, there's nothing you can do about it. It's going to continue to deteriorate. Two things that I adore doing, reading. Just cannot imagine listening to a book. Although, obviously, if that's the only way you could, yes, great. Hurrah for audiobooks. It's opened a whole new audience to reading that wouldn't normally open a book. But I need a page, I need to smell the page, and I want to read it with my own two eyes. And the other thing that I love doing is driving. And that was one of the first things that kind of came to my mind was like, I wouldn't want to lose the independence of being able to drive a car. So I drove home in a little bit of shock, and I kind of stayed in that shock for a little while. I did the thing you probably never should do, which is I Googled the condition, and then, got a couple of perlers on top of what this beautiful man had shared with me in his lovely bedside manner, which was that you can actually just go blind overnight. And also with corneal transplants, I started to read about those. And then there was, people who shared their story of where the transplant had failed and they had rejection to it. And anyway, fast forward, a year later, which he wanted to see me again a year later, I did go. And he said it's deteriorated quite a bit. And I thought to myself, well, yes, I know that because I look out of these eyes, so I knew that. But he confirmed it with his tests, and he said, look, I would say just keep coming in yearly. And what I did was I didn't go anywhere to any other corneal specialist for about 10 years. I left it about 10 or 11 years. Firstly, I thought, okay, I'm obviously going to start having some kinesiology treatments on this. I'm going to start working on my mind frame about it. And I really started to understand, because what was ringing in my mind, of course, were his words. Because who are you going to listen to? You're going to listen to, the person that knows about the thing that you don't know about. And the whole reason I'm sharing this with you is there's so many layers to this, but probably the most important one to start with is that we are always programming each other. It's so important that we're mindful of what we say, and it's so important that we're mindful of what we receive, because in that moment, he was very powerfully programming me to have an expectation of outcome. Now, he wasn't doing that because he's a terrible person. He was doing that because he's a Western medicine doctor. And Western medicine, you could listen to this video at any time and have whatever condition you have and be nodding and thinking, yes, we get programmed. They tell us what the expected outcome is. They tell us, and they give us all of this information that's based on other people and not based on ourselves. And when we're heavily in the Western medicine model as a patient, we want that information. We've been really programmed to expect that information. So we go to somebody else and we say, tell me what this means. Tell me what will happen. How long? Da, 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 da. And then we live it. And I would say I was probably in shock for 2 or 3 years. There's no doubt about it. For a good 2 or 3 years, I was going through a process of, oh my God. I know there would be many people who know me that do not know about this condition. I very, very, very rarely talk about it, other than to use it as an example. But I very rarely I very rarely give it airplay. And the reason is because what I started to, after kind of the first 3 years, I kind of started to come out of the days that I had been in and the program. I kind of was able to pop my head above water. The other thing that coincided with it beautifully was that I started to come to the end of my nursing and leaving nursing without a doubt. Certainly starting to study kinesiology and leaving nursing without a doubt had a profound effect on how I felt about this condition, how I started to shift in my perspective. So I you know, the people who did know, who were close to me, would encourage me, go and have an appointment, go and see what's happening. And I was like, I don't need to. I don't need anybody. If there is no treatment, why would I need to go for somebody to tell me what it means? And that's when I really started to think, you know what, I'm going to decide what this means. There, you know, kinesiology sessions, looking symbolically at what it was representing to me, what it was teaching me about. I even decided what the name means. So FUCH, I decided means fucked up childhood syndrome, which I had a fucked up childhood, but I no longer have. I'm no longer at the mercy of that. And so I decided I have healed my fuchs. I've healed that. Right? So this is the kind of thing I would start to say to myself. And when I would hear him ring, because of course it's powerful, you know, I'd hear him say, oh, you'll need a transplant within the next 10 years. I would really reject that. And I would decide, no, I'm not going to need a transplant. I'm not going to need one. And there was a lot of energy going to rejecting that, which I have shifted from, but that's still more powerful than going, oh my God. Okay. If you're in that phase of something, still more powerful. So, but for many years I was like, no, I'm not going to need one. I'm not going to need it. You know, my eyesight is going to remain fine. Well, it hasn't. So for example, I can't drive at night. It gives me night blindness. And I have learnt to navigate life with very blurry vision at times. I'm sorry for anybody that has been a passenger when I have been driving. I promise you're safe. Who might be listening to this going, I didn't know that. You were safe at all times. But you know, sometimes it's worse than others. I go through periods where it's bad. You learn to be okay with it. You learn not to be freaked out by it. But also understanding that cells renew, right? Every cell in our body renews itself. Some renew faster than others. But if cells are constantly renewing themselves, then I realized this while listening to Bruce Lipton, who is your man on all things cell biology. He is your man on empowering yourself over any physical issue. I heard him speak live, and when he was sort of explaining how cells regenerate, and I thought, and what I'm doing is I keep programming this old information into the new cells. So I'm the one that's constantly taking it into my future. So my power really lies in, I'll decide what this means. Not this guy with zero bedside manner. Yes, he's a Western medicine doctor. He's been taught to, you know, he hasn't really been taught any kind of empathy or compassion at all, particularly at his age. I think it is better now. I'm not sure. It's still highly lacking. But he didn't understand the power he wielded. That was up to me. And when I understood the power that he wielded, I took it away from him and I gave it to myself. And I started to say to myself about this condition all the time, and I started to apply this to everything. I will decide what this means. I will decide what this means. And as the condition did deteriorate, but nowhere near what it could have, and I am now, I think I am now 13 years post that diagnosis, and not heading to a transplant anytime soon. However, interestingly, what's shifted there is that about 3 years ago, I thought, I think I would like to find myself a corneal specialist that I really resonate with, because if it does get to a point where I need some assistance or some guidance, some advice, I want somebody that I have developed a rapport with that I can reach out to. So I Googled, I found somebody who I felt was the right person for me. I'm so happy to say she is the right person for me. I just saw her recently for the 3rd time. I see her now every 2 years. She's a breath of fresh air. We talk about how meditation helps. We talk about how our overall general well-being helps any dis-ease state. She keeps me informed on what things have changed. And even the first time I saw her, the very first time I saw her, and I shared with her this experience I had, we talked about it, with this original corneal specialist. And she explained to me that corneal transplants are not what they once were. Once upon a time, it was full thickness, full corneal transplant. Now it's partial thickness. It's just one layer of cells. You recover so much more quickly. You are far less likely to reject. I really left that appointment thinking, wow, how fortunate I am to have this procedure available to me should I ever need it. And that felt like the final power, the final piece of the puzzle in terms of really taking my power, because while I had spent that time rejecting it, saying I'm not going to have one, this felt like a full embracing of what is, and yet fully standing in my power and saying, I will decide what this means. I will create the group around me. I decide who's on my healing team. I decide what, when, where, and how. And at all times, I'm going to decide what it means. And the power within that doesn't really matter what actually ends up happening, because I will keep continually reaching for my power and be glad of what's available to me. Not just physically, obviously, but also physically and also medically. I am glad of what's available to me medically. And I wanted to share that story with you. I hope that you get from it whatever you need to get from it. Substitute, whatever is happening in your life or whatever you're approaching. Maybe it's now, maybe it's something that's been a chronic and long-term condition for you as well. I wanted to share with you where that came from, that full embodying and understanding of I'll decide what that means. And also I wanted to share with you, many have been along with me for some health issues that I have had since kind of the beginning of last year. And you're always beautifully supportive. And, I shared a lot of stuff on Facebook at the time about finding the right team for you, how to know what the right practitioner is for you, how to be in your power within the system and within kind of conditions. Many of you have been beautifully supportive and have often said, wow, I'm really inspired by how you've handled this. I wanted to share with you too that it's not my first time round, okay? So I have had an opportunity to find my strength within something like this before, so that when various symptoms came up last year, when it was, we don't have a diagnosis, I was like, oh, thank God. I am not going to go looking for one because I don't want you programming me. I don't need a diagnosis because I'm going to decide what this means. I don't need a diagnosis because once certain things had been ruled out that I was thinking I would want those ticked off, my healing team all work very holistically anyway. They work based on symptoms and not based on titles and names and diagnosis. And I didn't want somebody saying to me, oh, this is what it is, this is what you can expect, this is what the outcome is, and you will have this for the rest of your life. No, that's not what happens. That's not what happens, because in my life, I decide what this means, and I wholeheartedly encourage you to really start living from that in your life, that you decide what this means, no matter what situation you're in, who you have sat opposite, what they have told you. Apply it right now to anything the government are saying to us, to any media outlet, anything anybody's saying to you, regardless of what side they appear to be on. They could be a channeler, they could be a spiritual teacher, they could be a journalist, they could be a doctor, they could be Bill Gates. Probably shouldn't have said that in the video. But whatever you're hearing, move through your day. I decide what this means. Wanted to share with you where that came from, and what a beautiful lesson that man taught me. I mean, wow, he was part of a very powerful lesson. And the whole thing has just been like so layered in its material and its lessons and its insights, and I'm very grateful that I'm driving a car and I am reading and I am able to get through my day. And must share with you the very good news, which I also shared with Jacqueline the other day, that the Chinese medicine herbs that I am on for other symptoms that started last year, I know without a doubt they are improving my eyesight, because it is improving. So what a beautiful kind of, sort of circle that is. All right, much love to all of you. I hope this video helps you. Please like if it has spoken to you, resonated with you, please share. And if you are not subscribed here, I hope that you do and that you stay. Take care.